Good evening, UK Crime Book Club admins and members. Thank you for joining us, and hello if you're watching this afterwards. We are live with Anne Coates, who I've just been having a chat to about Hannah Weybridge novels. But let's introduce Anne first. Hi, Anne.
Hi. So,
how are you?
I'm absolutely hot and sweaty. Just a really good look,
isn't it? You look fabulous. You probably don't feel it because we're both absolutely boiling, but yeah, you do. You look great. So I was just saying before we went live that we have I've been reading the Hannah Weybridge series, and I'd read book 1, and I was going to read book 4, but I read the first chapter and thought I can't do it. I can't skip any. So I finished book 2 today. They are fantastic.
Thank you very, very much.
So how was it writing them?
Sorry?
How was it writing them? You've written 4 so far.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm writing number 5 currently.
Yay.
So, well, the thing was, I wrote the first one a very long time ago, and it didn't get a publisher, and a few people were interested, and then, it didn't work out, so
yeah,
I just left it. Anyway, 5 years ago, 2015, I had a spare afternoon, found the manuscript, read it, and thought, well, I still think it's good, but it could be better. So I rewrote it, and I sent it again to a few people. And so again, I got different offers, but I think you've got to find somebody you can work well with, and confidence in as well. So anyway, Matthew at Urbane wanted to see the whole manuscript, and then when he did, we phoned up and he said, well, I see it as a trilogy. So I went, oh, right, great. And I'd already written 3 chapters many years ago of the next one. And I don't even know what made me do that bit of it, So I thought, right, well, I've got 3 chapters, I'm going with those. And so then I've just continued. I think Petition's Child was probably a bit later on. I think there's a bit of a longer gap between those two, because I didn't have one out in 2019. This one came out in February. So that's a bit of a longer gap because I wasn't quite sure what we were doing or anything like that. But that was number 4, obviously, of a trilogy. So it ceased being a trilogy and became a series. So that's what I have now.
Exciting. I'm going to start us off with a couple of questions that Caroline Maston asked, and she's here at the moment. She says, hello, Sam and Anne, completely agree, they're fab.
Thank you.
So we have been talking about them, sending each other little messages on Facebook. So the first one that Caroline asked was, why did you choose to make the main protagonist a work-from-home single mum? It's unusual.
Basically, because it was me. And the first story was based on interviews that I did, and so that's where it came from. I was working from home, single parent, so yes, that was me. So I was commissioned by the News of the World colour supplement to interview a prostitute and a police officer at King's Cross, and which is what I went to do. And they never used the interviews in the end. They never used it in the end because it was just too traumatic, really.
Yeah.
The story was too traumatic. So, I mean, they still paid me, which was very nice. And then one evening, I was, I think my baby was, I'd fallen asleep with the baby. It was like over. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard somebody at the door, and I was like, oh my God, And I sort of looked out the door, and there was nobody there. And I even opened the door, and there was nobody there. And I just did the sort of what if bit. And you've read the first one, so you know what happened with that what if bit. And the thing was that I had actually, I had money to pay her. I had to pay the prostitute in ready cash,
Yeah.
And I handed her an envelope which had my name and address on it. So, and afterwards I thought, what a really stupid thing to do, Now she knows where I live. So anyway, that's what's my what if premise for the story. So that's where it started. and that's where she was. So, a single parent.
Definitely, I'm glad that there was nobody there when you knocked at the door, considering what happens to poor Hannah. I say poor Hannah, not really. She's fantastic and she's strong and she's interesting and she's a real woman because she's based on you.
Well, she's not. She started from me, but she's not really based on me. I mean, I would never do half the things she does. I mean, I really would not do them. And I also
write it, not fun to live it.
Yeah, I think as well. You know, I put her in situation. One of the things that I found with the first drafts that I didn't really put her in enough danger. I felt.
Okay.
So when I was rewriting, I was actually saying, right, well, you've really got to face the knife on the neck. You know, you've really got to do all the. You can't pussyfoot around because she's your little heroine sort of thing. So I have put her in situations where she could have died, or certainly been badly beaten up or something. I've done that. And one of the things that I think really influenced me really was Line of Duty. If you've ever watched that, because what Mareko always does is it gives you a character, and it's all, it could be a really famous actor, and you think, oh well, that character's going to be there till the end, and part 2, and they've killed them off or pushed them out through the window or something. So I think it's quite nice to pull the rug out from under people and say, that this is quite a surprise rather than. And my daughter was very surprised by the first one because she thought that Caroline and Hannah were going to go forward to be the team. But obviously not. Well, I better not say too much in case people.
We can say that they didn't become a team. That's fine. That's not a spoiler. Let's leave it there. Yeah. Caroline also wanted to ask. Well, she said there are lots of high-powered shenanigans in the novels. What inspires the plots?
Well, I mean, if you only have to look at the news, listen to the news now, and there are so many. Well, no, I won't get political.
No politics.
No politics, but basically, there's always somebody pulling the strings, and it's usually men with power, and often financial power.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean it's you get lots of people who are the middlemen or even the nearer ones, who actually do the dirty work, but they're not the people who are really pulling the strings, and so that's what I like to hint at, and certainly, yes, hint at.
Yeah. I do think it's good that I don't think it's a spoiler to say there is a high body count. You do like to kill people, but I think that's good because it means that we can't trust that you're going to save people just because we like them.
No. And sorry?
It adds to the surprise. We don't know what's coming.
Yes, yeah, and there was one character in the second one that you're just reading.
Well, you just finished that one today, yeah.
And one of the characters was named after a friend of mine's son who had really wanted to be a character. And I said, well, look, there is a character you can be, but I don't know which way he's going at the moment. I don't know if he's going to be a goodie or a baddie, whether he lives or dies, I don't care. He said, I'll just be, that'd be great. I'll be a character in a book.
Can I ask who that is?
Sorry?
Can I ask who?
Sam Lockwood.
Okay. Works for the charity that's mentioned in the book. Yeah. And that's all I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's and so I couldn't let him influence me, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about the young man I knew, and I was thinking, no, I can't. Yes, you can. Or yes, you can't. Yes.
My daughter, I was sat with my eldest this afternoon talking about your books, and she's 17. So I didn't go into too much detail, but we did kind of talk about the topics that were discussed. And I said, and she looks so sweet and so nice, and this is what she writes. So her question for you was, is there anyone from your early life who inspired you to start writing? And that's Leah, my eldest daughter.
Well, lovely to hear from you, Leah, anyway. I think my mum always had her nose in a book, and she taught me to read as well. And so I suppose it really went from there. And I just loved reading all the time. And, you know, when you're younger and you write silly little poems and little stories and things like that. I did write a fabulous non-fiction book called Underwater Creatures, which, you know, was just ridiculous. But yes, so as I got older, I did write more and more. But it was inspired by my reading. Sorry? Inspired by my reading.
Caroline would like to know, how much research do you have to do?
Well, I did. When I was a journalist, you always checked 3 sources, so that I wouldn't just, you know, go to Wikipedia or something like that. The first book, I interviewed a lot of prostitutes and police officers, not just the ones who I mentioned, because otherwise it wouldn't have rung true.
Yeah,
you know. So I always start off with something that's probably happened in some way, and then move it on to the realms of make-believe.
In the second book, and I'm sorry, the name escapes me.
What is the second book? Death, Silent Judgment.
Thank you. I couldn't think, and I normally have them written down at the side of me, but I've not. So that's a rookie mistake on my part. You do cover FGM, female genital mutilation, which is a big problem in a lot of parts of the world. So we won't go into that too much, but how was that to research? That must have been quite harrowing.
It was devastating. I just sat and sobbed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just horrible. It's just so awful. And I think one of the things, and you know, the mothers amongst us is that mothers were still taking their children, their young girls, back to be done. And you think, you went through that. How could you possibly let that happen to your own daughter?
Yeah.
But, no, I found that really cool, really awful. Yes.
Did you find anything in your research, just in general research, that surprised you, that you thought, you know, that helped in some way, something that you really didn't know? Quite a broad question.
It's a broad question, isn't it, really? I think a lot of the research was done over a long time. So, you know, all the things that I've done as a journalist and that has backed up what I've been doing. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise when I was writing, but may have been a surprise, you know, several years ago when I first discovered, say, FGM or, you know, something like that. I always, I'm rarely totally surprised by anything, but that's because I've got probably a nasty imagination as well. So.
Certainly a vivid one. I don't know about nasty, a very realistic one.
Well, I think you have to. I think if you're writing crime and thrillers, it's got to be true to a certain extent, and that's what we were saying about the violence and everything. You know, you can't have somebody who sort of who walks through everything as though she's in bubble wrap. You know, it's got to be somebody who picks up some scars along the way.
And you make her realistic. She's definitely picked up some scars emotionally and probably physically, thinking it through. And Caroline has just asked, does Paul ever get his comeuppance? Now, I'm only on book 2. So Paul Montague, do you want to explain who he is?
Paul Montague is her ex-partner with whom she has had the father of her baby. And he walked out. He didn't want anything to do with her when she was pregnant. So I don't think I can say any more than that, really.
No. Does he appear further on in the books? Because obviously he was mentioned in book 1, he appears in book 2, I won't go into any detail of how or what, but does he appear in further books?
Yes.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Probably good enough for Kaz. I'm guessing this will be our next messaging session.
I think what I've tried to do is create Hannah's world, if you like. And so, you know, people do come in and out of your life. There's a sort of ebb and flow of people, and you might not see somebody for 6 months or something like that, and then they come back into your life again. And I wanted her circle to be like that, you know, that she would have friends and not friends, you know, sort of people who don't wish her well, to be around and to come backwards and forth, and not so that at the end of that book you think, oh yeah, that's finished. She'll never see X again, because X is still out there. There are
so you're always going to wonder, aren't you, as a reader, whether they're going to pop up again? Yes,
and there's one of my friends who's actually a barrister, and he said to me, "Oh, Anne," he said, "I just read the third one, I think it was." He said, "I think you just have to give me a synopsis of each one with a character list, you know." And I said, "Yes, but I wouldn't. You must promise never to read on with the character list, because you'd see who would have disappeared.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Would you ever write a police procedural with a serving officer or detective as your main character?
I did start one just before lockdown, actually. I started one which was going to be a 2 partnership thing, and it was serving officer, but I've hardly got beyond the first chapter, so and I'm fortunate that I do know people in the Met as well now who I could ask, you know, for research and things like that. So yes,
we've got a I'm not sure who the question's from. It just comes up as Facebook user, and it says, how long did it take to rewrite the first book? That's an excellent question.
Oh gosh, yeah. How long is a piece of string? Well, one of the things that was really difficult was the fact that it was actually printed out, and I'd changed computers so many times that I didn't have it stored electronically. So I had to. Well, first of all, I decided I would look at it as an editing job, is what I used to do anyway, you know, and I'd sort of really go through it and edit and rewrite, and then key in the whole thing, and that did take. Just trying to think how long it would have taken. A few months, I suppose. Because I always, whichever book, it's always printed out 2 or 3 times, and I work on it. You know, I try and pretend I'm a different person, and I'm the editor then. A different hat on, and also I sort of move things around, you know, because I suddenly think, no, that, and I get rid of stuff, sadly. You know, I've been writing recently, I thought, I bet that scene goes. A editor woman would take that scene out.
Can you even keep the scenes to see if they're useful in a future book?
Oh, I do keep everything, yes. Yeah. And what I did with Perdition's Child, I rearranged. There was something that I was going to do that I didn't feel worked.
Okay.
And in the end, I put it in as an epilogue. So I carried on. I did use it, but it wasn't used in the way that I'd anticipated.
Fair enough. Somebody has asked, can you tell us about your writing process? Do you have kind of a word count that you try and stick to, or a routine, or?
Oh, I'm useless at that. I'm absolutely. I wish, you know. And some of my friends are so good. So I sit down, I write 1,000 words, you know, and I think, well, I hate you. Yeah, absolutely hate you. Sometimes I do find that I'm much better when I sort of think, right, I'm going to sit down and write for an hour, say, or 2 hours. And you can't sit down for too long because your backside ends up the size of mine then. So so I would always aim to do at least 500 words a day. And sometimes I get a lot more than that, you know, which is great.
Must take the pressure off a bit, though, not setting yourself a a strict target.
Yeah. And I don't really worry about, I mean, my books are quite short, you know, I mean, they're 60 or 1,000, you know, they're not 80, 90,000. And I don't worry about that, because I think the book should be the length that suits the story. And if you're padding it, then, you know, if you're just writing to make up the numbers, then it's not worth it. So I tend to write very succinctly, and very short, and then I go back and think, yeah, well, she needs to expand that, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. But I do write. I used to write sort of like tales with a twist, which were just 1,000 words long, and you had to get the whole story in 1,000 words. And so I learned to write very succinctly, to do that, and each word absolutely counts, you know. So that's how I write. And also for journalism, because, you know, you often asked to do, you know, 1,500 words or 2,000 words or whatever, and they want it by tomorrow or yesterday. So you do. I have learned to write quickly if I need to.
Yeah. So. You've had quite a few. So you've been a journalist. Do you still do journalism now? Or?
I've got a website for families now, which is what I just use the journalism for, you know, journalistic bits in. But no, I used to write for a lot of magazines and newspapers. Yeah, and then I used to edit a lot as well, books and a couple of different magazines and things. But I've done, you know, I ended up sort of doing things like flying out on the North Sea, you know, on the gas platforms and things like that. It was just you know, it's something that I couldn't imagine doing now, really. And it was, you know, they're so high up, and you have to wear special boots to weight you, even me, to weight you down. And when I got out of the helicopter, I just grabbed the nearest bloke, you know, and held on for dear life, because I could just see myself sort of being whisked off through the air, you know. So I've done all sorts of, you know, sorts of different journalism as well. Not just sort of like women's magazine journalism, but yeah. So.
Caroline's asked, would you write a standalone crime novel?
Yes, I would. Was the answer to that one. At the moment, I've also got this is what I started before Hannah 5. Actually, I've started a standalone psychological thriller, which is very different. So it's sort of it's not going to be set in the here and now, because I don't think anybody wants to know anything about 2020. But it will be, you know, it will be in the 2000 pluses. You know, it will be contemporary rather than you know, back in the 90s, and also because a lot of it depends on technology, so giving it away really, aren't they?
No, not at all. Lots of things depend on technology.
You don't have in the 90s, you know, you don't have that technology in the 90s. Yeah, of course.
My kids are still amazed that we didn't have mobile phones and things as a kid. 4 or 5 channels. Didn't need it. I was up a tree half my childhood. I didn't need it, so it was fine. Caroline said, the lost property guy at King's Cross is fabulous. Would you write a spin-off novella about him? No, he's definitely interesting. He's very trustworthy and very. He couldn't be the lost property guy in a police station, could he?
No. I love him. I absolutely adore him, and also it's. I was not giving anything away to say he's got a limp, you know. And one of the things that I really enjoy in life, but I watch people a lot, and I often watch the way people walk, and that comes over with the lost property, but also because I'm short-sighted. Sometimes I can't see the person, but I can recognise the way they walk. You know? I think, oh yeah, that's so and so because they're walking like that. You know, so that yes, and he does come back. He's not in the last one, but he hasn't gone.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So would you write a novella, something just about him that tells his story?
It's quite fun to do that, I think. Yeah, I mean, you could just do an ebook, couldn't you? A novella ebook for somebody's story. And he does develop quite a lot, and you get to know him a bit better, because at the beginning you're not quite sure if he's a goodie or a baddie. And
yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
you know, but he's very nice to Hannah and supports her.
Yeah, he's very nice to lots of people, and he has. I won't give anything away, but there are some interesting relationships with him.
Indeed.
So
yeah.
I do think, to understand him more, people need to just go and read them. They really do.
Yeah.
He's definitely somebody that I've grown fond of.
Yes, there's another character who you've just met. No, you've just read about, who is not in Dancers, but is in Death, Silent Judgment. Is the D.S. Benton, Mike Benton, and I love him too.
I can't quite figure him out.
Oh well, hang on.
So at which point am I going to learn about him? Which book?
The whole point is it's just little bits weave through, you know, so you really, you'll learn a bit about him here and a bit about him there, and then gradually, or you think, oh, that's what it was, you know, that's why he was like that.
A lot of questions, and I think that's good. I like that there's you could read them as standalones, but for me, I'd read them in order. But it's nice having, because that's what happens, isn't it? With people in real life, you'll maybe see them a little bit in one place and a bit in another, and you'll slowly
build a picture. So a bottle of wine, you learn something totally different about them, and you think, oh. I think I was thinking about standalones and everything, but I've been really naughty, and I've watched the first 3 series of Line of Duty again. Last night I watched the whole of series 3.
I think that might be my favourite one, if it's the one I'm thinking of. But again, I won't give any spoilers away.
No, and I think that's the same sort of thing, that from series 3, in series 3, there are still things coming up from the previous series, and you know, so, and that's like life, isn't it? Your life doesn't stop at the end of, you know, 1 year and start again in the next year. You've got things that you've done before that may come and haunt you even.
It pays to be good, readers and members. It pays to be good.
Or at least care.
Absolutely, yeah. Know who your friends are. Somebody has asked, can you tell us about your short story collection and how much flash fiction have you written? Doesn't say who that
is. So no, okay. So the flash fiction that I've done has been really short, you know, like 99 words or 75 words.
Wow.
So I won prizes for a couple of those, and a second one. And Planet Paragraph does short story, you know, I did one of those recently, which is 75 words exactly, and that's it. You know, it cuts off if you do any more. So I really love things where you're bringing it right down to a sort of microscopic level, if you like, whereas a novel you're sort of magnifying out, and when you go in for a really, really short story, it's that. And I find that fascinating about people, as well as stories. And so then I've written quite a lot of sort of, well, 1,000-word stories. They used to be in the back of Bella. I even wrote a historical. I wrote a sort of spoof Sherlock Holmes type one, and other ones are sort of like relationship ones, not sort of love stories so much as family relationships. So I used to do those for Bella and Candice and various other, you know, magazines. And so
I remember stealing my mum's copies of Bella and reading them. I've probably read some of yours.
Yeah, but I've got the there's a book called Checkmate and Other Tales of the Unexpected. That's sadly, that was free up until today, so they put it back on. But that's just got about a dozen stories in it or something like that, you know. And then there's another one that's got sort of a much longer novella one, which is Tale of Two Sisters. And then that's got a couple of short stories at the back. But again, it's relationships.
Somebody has asked.
Not necessarily ones.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry. No, I was just saying not romantic ones necessarily, you know.
Somebody has asked, again, it just says Facebook user. How long does it take you to choose character names?
Well, that's difficult sometimes. Hannah, when I worked on Woman's Weekly and Woman at Home in the fiction department, we often used to make up names. We also would have to check names to make sure, you know, there wasn't anybody anywhere who was called Hannah Weybridge. And strangely enough, there is nobody called Hannah Weybridge. If you Google Hannah Weybridge, the only person who comes up is my character, because that was, I did really well with that one. So the other ones, I use names that I like. If it's, yes, sort of, I do change the names as well. You know, I might start off with a Peter and end up with a Paul, or, you know, something like that. And I also check their date of birth, as it were. And so I go through what the names were, what the most popular names were in that year.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't choose necessarily the most popular, but perhaps number 10 on the list for that person. So that's how I choose names. And then some, and you know, it's not set in stone. Well, it is at the end of it, but it's not really set in stone. So that, I mean, I said the psychological thriller, I keep changing their names. No, I can't have that one again. I'm changing it to Megan or whatever, you know.
How did, without any, I don't want to give anything away, but how did Stan Lockwood feel about how his namesake turned out?
I think he's really happy with it, actually. I mean, you know, as far as anybody is for that sort of thing. I mean, yes, he was dead chuffed.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, and I was saying to people recently, if anybody wants to be a name in a book, you know, I mean, just shout, you know. But then you can't.
Leaves the name on the feed.
Sorry.
See if anybody leaves the name on the feed for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, if anybody does. But the other thing, of course, is that you've got no control over whether it's a goodie or a baddie. So.
Yeah, that might be well, luckily for you, Sam Lockwood was fine with any, you know, outfit, so that's good. Yeah. I did see somebody with a similar name to me in a book one, because I'm Samantha Brownlee, and somebody, Duncan Brockwell, has got a character called Samantha Brown with an E, and I thought, oh, there we go, somebody else who always has to spell the surname.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And I was reading somebody's book, and there's coatses all over it. I was, how dare you use my
surname? Somebody has asked, would you ever write about the early days of Hannah Weybridge?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't. Well, a sort of prequel as opposed to I suppose you could do a sort of romantic one before her baby.
I think that would be nice to see. Yeah, to see a younger version and to see how she ended up with Paul, and you know,
some of that does come out later on in the books. So, you know, you will know a little bit more about Hannah.
I'll be messaging you by the end of the week when I've finished the next two. Somebody has asked, oh, this is a good one. Would you ever write a series which has a male character in the lead role?
Yes. Yeah, why not? I mean, I think, well, the one that I said I started, you know, I've only done about like a chapter of, I mean, it's a male police officer, and he would be the lead in it, the lead character. Although there would be somebody with him, you know, it's not just him. There's somebody to balance him. Because I think you need people to kick off, you know, you need characters to talk to each other so that they can work out what they're doing. Oh, I just realised I could see the feed down there.
See the feed, yeah, I should have told you, sorry, it's down the side, Anne.
But the thing I was going to say about the characters, I really like Claudia Turner, who is the detective inspector from book 2 onwards. And I really enjoy her as a character because people go, oh, I don't know what to make of her. And I said, yes, you're not supposed to.
Particularly at the beginning, you don't know. It's Claudia Turner, isn't it? You don't know what to make of her. And then she grows on you, and then she'll do something, and you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, then
she'll kind of figure her out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's quite nice because they have a sort of friendship. Well, they do have a friendship. They do, they do have a friendship, which I think is rather nice. But they're very prickly with each other.
Yeah.
So they might start off one evening and it seems as though everything's nice, and then they both really upset each other or something. But I think it was quite funny because somebody wrote in a review about Hannah and said that she was a bit standoffish and a bit prickly, and in the end, you really grow to like her. And my daughter said, "Oh, they've met you then." Charming.
I never would have pictured her as standoffish and prickly. I think she doesn't suffer fools.
No.
And she's astute. She sees things in people, or she'll trust her gut about somebody. I suppose that's maybe a journalism thing.
Yes.
She trusts her gut.
And the thing is, she is quite lonely. That's the other thing, that she does feel loneliness at times. And so, and Claudia does as well. So they do sort of balance each other a little bit on the loneliness side of things.
Yeah.
And lots of people feel lonely in a crowd, don't they? So
yeah, absolutely.
She does feel lonely at times.
Somebody has asked, again, it's just coming up as Facebook user, so I'm sorry, I don't know who it is. Nothing to do with writing. I love your jewellery. Where do you buy it?
Oh, this? Well, this and the earring were from my daughter.
Oh, that's nice.
I had no idea they were presents. Thank you very much.
I think somebody needs to do some Googling just to see.
Take a picture of Google. I think these were a sort of local woman who makes designs, that sort of thing.
Caroline Maston has said you should make Sam a baddie. I think she means me.
Yes, I think she does mean.
And she says she's always fancied being a wicked murderer type.
Oh.
So I'm going to take 3 steps away from Caroline. And I'm not going to get on her nerves.
No, don't. For goodness sake, don't. Of course, we have had one Caroline. Not that you can't have another Caroline.
No, not at all. No. Quite different to our Kaz.
Yeah, yes.
Her dances on the wind, so she'll know exactly what we're talking about. And that's where I'll stop there.
Don't dig the hole any deeper.
Especially not seeing as she fancies being a wicked murderer type. I think I'll back off. Caroline's letting me know that a lot of the anonymous questions are from Jason, so thank you, Jason Kelly. And TG has asked about the jewellery, so.
All right, okay.
T, you need to get Googling.
Yeah.
Kaz wants to know, would you write stories in other genres?
Ooh, I really do enjoy crime, and I think, and I do read lots of other genres as well, and I think, oh my goodness, that's so brilliant! How can they ever write something so fabulous? You just like that. I've just read The Paupers by Mark Haddon, and it is just so creative, innovative. Beautifully written, and I wouldn't have. I just say, oh, I've never be able to do that. So maybe I would. Who knows? No, I mean, if I had a really good idea, I'm not a very romantic type person, so I don't think I would ever do anything on a romance level. I quite fancy every now and again doing something not exactly science fiction, but a bit, a bit like that, a bit weird and wonderful. And I used to absolutely adore Dracula stories. So, don't ever think I might not.
So what other things do you like to read? Do you have favourite authors that you pounce every time they have a new release?
I used to. I don't so much now, because it just seems to be... I've got so many friends who write that I just have to sort of limit myself to how many of theirs I read. And so I do enjoy, and I wouldn't dream of naming names sort of thing, but I nearly always enjoy their books. So that's lovely. I read relatively recently Anne Enright's Actress, which again is much more literary, although there's a crime in it. And Grandmothers, I read, and one, interestingly, because you were talking about FGM earlier, a friend of mine said, "Oh, obviously when birthdays during lockdown, you can't see anybody or do anything." She said, "Oh, is there a book you want, and I can get it sent to you?" And I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "I'd like Girl by oh God, her name's just gone straight out of my head. Anyway, it'll come back in a moment." And I had no idea what it was about. And when I started reading it, I thought, I'm not actually sure I can read this. And it was about FGM. And I found it really difficult. It wasn't just about that. No, it was about the girls who were kidnapped in Sudan and everything, Yeah. I just thought, I'm not sure I can actually read this. So I did find that difficult.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't read lots. I used to love science fiction, but I probably wouldn't read science fiction particularly now. And as I said, I'm not a romantic soul, so I'll probably end up having murders in the middle of it.
Somebody has asked what authors have influenced your writing.
Oh, well, I think every author you've read has influenced you. Whatever you've done, every poem, everything that you've done influences you in some way. And we're all, wherever we are in life, we're the amalgam of everything we've done so far. So everything. I mean, I loved The Famous Five and Secret Seven. I even read Janet and John. But there you go. But couldn't get enough of D.H. Lawrence. I just used to go through his books, and I just absolutely adored them. And James Joyce was another. Now, I don't pretend that I write in any way at all like them, but there are sometimes things that you think, oh, in life or something. But I think my writing style is very much, and it took me a long time to get my writing style as well. It took me a very long time before I felt that I had a voice. I wrote short stories for ever so long time before I got them published, and I think the voice wasn't right. It didn't come over in the right way, but eventually I nabbed it, and then people were buying them, so that was good.
Caroline's asked one of my favourite questions, which is, what are your most memorable moments as an author? We always get such varied answers to this. I love it.
I had a couple of them were sort of like people just posted, friends who, not close friends or something, and they just post on Facebook that they were then in the garden reading my book, and I think, they got my book, and I didn't even know that they knew I'd written it, so that was really nice. And I once walked into the local florist shop, and there were two women in there, the one who owned the shop and somebody else, and they were poring over a magazine and chatting away, and I went in there, and they sort of ignored me, really. And then they sort of looked up, and one of them sort of nudged the other one like that, and they said, "Well, you know who wrote this, don't you?" And then it went, Anne, in front of it, and they were reading one of my long short stories, and that was just such a wonderful feeling. It was really, really lovely. And I thought, I made. And the other thing was, a friend of mine who worked on Bella, but not on fiction. She was one of the medical editor. And she rang me one day and said, I've just been in tears reading one of your stories. And I thought, oh, that's lovely too. So yes, there's sort of lots of lovely moments. And I think when somebody comes up and says they've enjoyed a book, I'm going to name drop now in a funny sort of way, but I went to Tessa Giles' memorial service, and she used to be my MP, and that was at Southwark Cathedral. We all had to queue up to get it, to go through security and everything. And suddenly this woman said, "Anne," like this. She said, "I've just read your latest one. It was absolutely fantastic." And I stood there in this glow, and people kept, you could see people thinking, "Oh, how's she?" But it was absolutely lovely, to sort of somebody made a point of saying how much they enjoyed your book.
Yeah.
I think that, and that never goes away. I don't think that goes away for even the top sellers, the biggest sellers in the world, sort of thing. If somebody takes the time to read it and then takes the time to say to you, "I really enjoyed that." And another, you said it, best moments. I think it was Songs of Innocence, and that is set very much where I live. And I got a text message from somebody, and he said, I've just finished Songs of Innocence. I need to speak to you. Can I come round for a coffee? And I loved it so much. I just want to talk about it. And I thought, I love him. So yes, those moments are priceless. And sometimes we wish you could just put them in a jar and keep them. And when things are going really badly, open that jar and just go like that. They are such lovely moments.
That's good. Kaz wants to know, when does Hannah 5 come out? So have you got a name? I know you're working on it at the moment. Have you got any? No,
and I wouldn't give it away. I wouldn't give it away at the moment, just in case I change my mind. I don't like it. I mean, the thing was that I wasn't. I've always did a bit of a J.K. Rowling sort of thing with. I thought I'd have 7 books, and I know what number 7 starts. I know how number 7 starts. So whether I do that or not is another matter. But probably next year sometime is the short answer.
Can you give us any idea of what Hannah's going to be facing? Or would you rather not?
Destruction.
So standard Hannah's life.
Yeah. Murder.
Murder and mayhem.
Murder and mayhem.
Into more things.
Yes, and I think in this one, I have the body count's quite low at the moment. So
okay, I expect that to change.
It will change. Yes, they do get good.
You are bloodthirsty. I like it. I like that in a woman.
Yes. Yeah. But vegetarian,
Somebody has asked, I wonder if this is Jason again, I've no idea, it just comes up as Facebook user. If the books get adapted for TV, who would you like to see play Weybridge? Do you have any ideas?
Everybody asks that one. And I always think, actually, nobody could play it. I don't mean nobody.
I get what you mean.
What I think is that when anything is adapted, it then becomes a different medium. So the person who wrote a screenplay might see Hannah differently, and that would be their baby. You lose, and unless you're again J.K. Rowling and you keep hold of everything. But a lot of it is you would lose that. I mean, I thought, oh goodness, names always go straight out of my head when I think about this. But who was in Line of Duty? Anyway, one of the women, the DI who.
I'm terrible with actual names on actors.
But I think she would be quite good. Yes, I mean, I think any actor.
Vicky McClure, she's the only one I can think of at the moment.
The one. Oh goodness me, the one who was the nasty woman who went to prison. The DI.
I'm sure. Do you know what? I'll have to Google it afterwards.
Yeah, I know. That one.
There is a question on the feed that's just made me go, oh, do you ever fall in love with your characters?
I do a bit, yes, I do.
I love that question.
I think I think what was quite interesting was when I think I was a bit in love with Tom, certainly at the beginning in book 1. And I remember when I was doing book 2, and a friend of mine who's really quite critical about everything, and she said, oh, by the way, just don't kill off Tom, will you?
He's going to be like the golden goose.
Okay, right. And then another person who again I didn't think was het up on romance sort of thing. She was reading, I think it was book 2 she was reading, and she said, I was thinking, for God's sake, Tom, get the next plane back quickly. So I do like Mike Benton, DS Mike Benton, because although he's a grumpy old sod, he does sort of become enough. And I like Rory, the news editor.
Yeah, he's lovely. I keep waiting for some sort of undercurrent to appear with him. And of course, they're so nice.
He is so nice, but you never know the nice thing. And the other one is James, the doctor.
Yeah. So he's Hannah's friend, and he features a lot.
Yes. He doesn't. Yes, I think he probably features more in some than others. And also there was another. I can't remember his surname. Mark, who comes into book 3. He's a soldier.
I've just started book 3, so I look forward to meeting Mark.
He's quite tasty. I mean, why right then you don't fancy, you know?
I think there's definitely some that you've written that I don't fancy.
Sorry?
Definitely some that you've written that I don't fancy. I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have characters, that you've got to have attractions between the characters. You know, you need to have sort of something going for them, don't you?
Oh God, yeah. Somebody has asked. No, actually, I've just got. Caroline said that was TG. She wins for good questions. So I wonder if that was the one that we've just answered. Do you ever fall in love with your characters? So thank you, T. That's a great. I love that question. That was so good. Yeah. So I want to know. I mean, we are really running out of time. So I'm just going to get one more question in from me. And then I'm going to ask you to show off your book covers so that everybody knows what they're looking for. I would have loved to have had them behind me, but I've read them all on Kindle.
On Kindle, yeah.
That's the thing. I read so many books that I couldn't possibly get them here in time to make sure I've read them for the author chat. So I do apologise. I do try, as you can see, have as many of our author members behind me as possible. Oh, I've got the camera the wrong way around, but yeah. Lots of member books behind us. I want to know what comes first, the characters or the crime?
That's a good question, really, isn't it? I think the characters do, and then the crime fits around them. Well, yes and no. I mean, the characters come to me first, but they may be presented dead first. You see what I mean? I mean, when I wrote the second one, and I don't think it's not giving anything away to say that it starts off with her friend who's dead. You know.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't give anything away. Literally, that's what you walk into. So yeah.
But she is mentioned in the first book. But I didn't want her to be just a dead character. So there are flashbacks and letters and diary entries that Hannah eventually finds, so that we flesh out the character of Liz. You know, I didn't want Liz to just be a dead body. So there's bits of Liz come forward throughout. So yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, just quickly before I ask you to show your books, you do cover a broad range of real people.
Sorry?
You cover a broad range of real people. Your characters are realistic. They've got lives. They've got feelings. They've got families. They've got friendships.
I think the other thing is where I live as well is very diverse. And my friendship groups are very diverse as well. So that sort of helps to I mean, some of the characters actually are I've taken from family members. You know, because I mean, I've got some. I just think some of them are so funny. So I just put, that's a really funny thing about them. I mean, they're dead, so it's all right. You know, they can't come back. Or they could haunt me, I suppose.
They could, yeah. Good luck going to sleep tonight with some of them.
Yes. Do you want me to show my cat?
I love that. Yeah, thank you.
So, Dancers in the Wind is the first one. Death, Silent Judgment is the second one. And these are all lines taken from poems, favourite poems.
Oh, wow.
Songs of Innocence. So Songs of Innocence is from Blake, and it's set in Peckham Rye, where Blake had the vision of the angels. So that's that. And Perdition's Child is my last baby, my youngest baby. And I love that cover. I love that cover with the shadows on it.
I did start Perdition's Child, as I said, but I read the first chapter and I couldn't leave the two middle books out. I just knew I wanted to read them in order.
That's so kind of you. Thank you.
That's it. I've got my Kindles at the side of me here. So as soon as we're done, that's what I'm going back to.
Brilliant, and thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful getting to know you. I can't wait for Hannah Book 5 as well, so please do let us know once you've got a publication date.
I certainly shall. And if I decide to do a little novella on the way of what's his name, the Lost Property Man, I shall let you know. Anyway, thank you so much.
We'll share that for you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
And thank everybody for their questions as well.